We have so many people who feel unheard.
I've delivered everything that I said I would. Yes, we saved the Arctic.
Debora Juarez is running for a second term on the Seattle City Council. Will voters in District 5 pick her or challenger Ann Davison Sattler to represent North Seattle?
You can take that with you? Okay.
My record speaks for itself.
Both candidates weigh in.
We have a vacuum of leadership.
So let me just say this.
The race to represent District 5.
You want the first responders home at night.
Next on City Inside Out. Welcome to this edition of City Inside Out. I'm your host, Brian Callanan. The race for Seattle City Council District 5 is a bit of a legal battle. Challenger Ann Davison Sattler is an attorney, and incumbent Debora Juarez is an attorney herself and former judge. Sattler is making a case that Juarez is ineffective and not responsive to her North Seattle district. Juarez counters she's been dedicated to D5, helping land projects like light rail stations and a new pro hockey facility. Now it's time for voters to come up with a final verdict on who should lead District 5 as the ballots come in this fall.
Thank you. It's good seeing you tonight.
Debora Juarez wants another term in the Seattle City Council's District 5 seat after what she sees as 4 years full of progress.
I want to keep listening to what the people of Seattle and my district community needs.
From the Northgate pedestrian bike bridge, a new National Hockey League facility at Northgate, and 2 light rail stations coming to D5, Juarez says she's helped her district grow.
So those are major projects that I started, that we got out of committee, that we got votes on, that we've worked hard on, and I want to finish all that.
In the 6-way August primary, Juarez earned more than 45% of the vote, the second highest percentage among the 3 incumbent council members running.
Yes, we saved the Arctic.
Juarez, one of 6 children born to a Native American mother and first-generation Mexican-American father, is endorsed by the Civic Alliance for a Sound Economy, the political arm of the Seattle Chamber, MLK Labor, and IAFF Local 27, the Seattle Firefighters Union. She says she's focused on a wide range of top issues.
It's sheltering the unsheltered. It's getting up our housing stock. It's transportation.
With regard to fundraising, Juarez has raised about $147,000 for her campaign as of early October, with about 54% of that coming from Seattle's publicly funded Democracy Voucher program.
This is actually pretty cool.
Political action committees are playing a smaller role in D5 than in other races. With about $9,800 in expenditures as of late September, People for Seattle, the PAC led by former council member and mayor Tim Burgess, CASE, and the Civic Alliance for a Progressive Economy are supporting the Juarez campaign. None are supporting her opponent, Ann Davison Sattler.
I am the poster child for what district representation should be.
Juarez says her work on major projects like Seattle's new waterfront and a revamped Seattle Center, plus her work on local projects like $18 million for the Lake City Community Center, are proof that she's listening.
You take ideas from community, you do the plans, you raise the money, and you transcend that into actual brick and mortar. So for me, that's been exciting.
If you want excitement,
Hi, I'm Ann. I'm going to be on people's ballots for November.
Ann Davison Sattler says she's bringing it.
I have so much energy. There's been someone who commented about they should just plug the city into me and they could run for a while.
Sattler came to Seattle to work for the Sonics in the 1990s and has a background in community events as a school fundraiser, coach, and tutor. She's an attorney and a married mother of 2 elementary-age kids.
Drop and give me 10 push-ups.
Who've been helping her work out some issues on the campaign trail.
I've watched Seattle change during my children's lifetime, and it's really been because of an unresponsive council.
Sattler says she decided to run after trying, unsuccessfully, to reach Debora Juarez about so-called safe injection sites, which Juarez supports and Sattler does not.
And that started my road on researching this position and why my representative was out of touch for me. And I started uncovering that was the pattern, a pattern of neglect and unresponsiveness.
Sattler received close to 27% of the vote in the 6-person August primary, the second highest amount for any candidate running against an incumbent this fall. She's endorsed by former NBA champ, part team owner, and general manager of the Sonics, Wally Walker, plus the director of UW Medicine's Addictions Division, psychiatry professor Dr. Richard Rees, and the Seattle Times.
This That's great.
On the fundraising front, Sattler has raised just over $51,000 for her campaign as of early October and is not using the Democracy Voucher program.
We see that there is a need, there is a vacuum of leadership, of positive leadership.
Sattler says D5 needs a leader who responds more quickly to local concerns and says her top priorities include public safety, addiction prevention and recovery, and homelessness and housing. Specific to homelessness, Sattler says she'd bring a different, more fiscally minded perspective to what she sees as a failed response from the city.
The approach is not working, and if you were to look at it from a business perspective, you would not continue to do the same approach with just more money and more time to expect a different outcome. So the approach needs to be different because we are spending a lot of money for that, and we're not seeing any difference.
Should D5 keep an incumbent council member who says she's getting results, or bring in a newcomer promising better connection with constituents? The answer to that question is coming our way this November.
I've delivered everything that I said I would.
I'm running because I really want some change.
And here they are, the candidates for District 5 in Seattle, Debora Juarez and Ann Davison Sattler. Thank you both very much for joining us here. We had a coin flip before the show. Debora, you'll go first. Why are you running for this position on the City Council, running for a second term?
Well, I love my job, and I've been good at it, and I'm excited, and I really want to go another 4 years. And let me just, even though you saw the clip of the projects that we've done, we want to keep listening to the people of Seattle and District 5. We want to keep delivering not only brick and mortar projects, but the social service programs that we've been doing. We want to finish the big projects that we've started. But another issue is that you don't see a lot, we don't hear a lot, is we've been so successful in working with the mayor's office in the Promise program in North Seattle College to get apprenticeship programs in there, manufacturing jobs. I want to be here again to see when we drop the puck for the NHL, when we open up the Seattle Center, when we cut the ribbon for the Lake City Community Center, when we open up the waterfront. Those are all projects that we started citywide, locally, that we want to see, and also to tackle the issue, the continued issue of how we shelter the unsheltered.
Got it, and we'll definitely dive into that issue.
Thank you.
Ann, tell us, why are you running for this position?
I'm running because I do want to have change. I think it's a really critical time for Seattle. We have a vacuum of leadership. We have a big disconnect between actual people, residents here, and our city leadership. And it is palpable, and it is everywhere that I've been. And it was there before I was a candidate. I've been hearing it all over. So if people don't know me, I'm a mom, I'm an attorney, I'm a soccer coach. I've been here for 23 years, worked for the Sonics. It's critical that we have people that are really committed to the constituents and that they are the ones that matter and not any other issue in particular. I want to make sure that there are people available and listening and not shaming anyone for what they're concerned of.
Okay. Debora, let's dive into this. You've heard Ann's concerns on the campaign trail, I know, about the need to be more responsive to your district. Do you think you've been responsive enough to your constituents?
Oh, absolutely. You've heard it in the clip. We have not only, I say poster child, but the yardstick to what the voters asked for in 2013, 2014, to what district representation is. I'm the only council member that has a district office. I'm there on the North Seattle campus every Friday. We're the only one that has a district director, actually paid person whose job it is. We have a D5 chamber and a D5 neighborhood coalition. Now, all of these things didn't just happen. We created that. So people need to understand that we get hundreds of emails and thousands of phone calls a day, and we try to be responsive to each and every one of them. But my record speaks for itself, whether we're talking about the Seattle Center, the waterfront, the Lake City, our 2 light rails, bringing NHL, and also creating well over 1,200 units of affordable housing. So I don't know what more I could do as a district representative to tell D5, I'm your candidate, I'm your councilwoman, and I will continue to fight for you, including the police station.
Okay, and we're going to dive into that too. Thanks for bringing it up. And I want you to touch on what Debora was saying here. And also, if you were elected, how would you balance this need to be responsive to your district and the need to be responsible to a council committee you're on, for example, taking care of the waterfront or libraries or whatever else? Help us out with that, because I know there's a lot of important work that needs to go on in a district, but there's a lot of important work that needs to go on downtown too. Tell us about that whole balance issue, please.
Right, and actually the waterfront discussion was started in 2011, so long before Debora was in office. But I think what's important to know is that even though there is a district office, what I've heard and what I've heard before I was even a candidate is that people have reached out multiple times, and there is not a response, or there is a redirect that this is an SBD issue, or that's a Seattle Public Utility issue. There's not an actual resolution to the problem, and that is what people want. We have a busy culture, and people cannot keep track of work orders, who I talk to at this agency, going to this, and I really feel like it would be my job to go to bat for those people and really see it through to resolution, and so that they can just take it off their plate and it would go on to mine. It would become my problem, my staff's problem, and that's not what I hear. And literally, it is not true that there is someone within reach. We have so many thousands of people that have told me that they have emailed and called. I was out at a man's house just a couple days ago who called and spoke to a staffer and was told and said to write a long email, but it was a really physical problem. He was having difficulty describing it and wanted someone to come out. And I came out in a couple of days.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to shift gears if I can and talk about homelessness. And maybe I can start with you here. We've had reports from city and local business leaders about a need for more funding for the homeless crisis. And we have a lot of critics saying we're throwing money at a problem that's not getting better. 3 things here, if you would. What do you want to change about the city's homeless response? Do we need more dollars to deal with homelessness? And if so, where do you get that money?
I don't think we need more dollars. I think we have what's being called as resource hoarding going on a lot. People are wanting to get credit and want to feel relevant, and I think that that's not the way that we get things done. We need to be focused on productivity, and that means getting people into shelter. So the way that we focus that right now is, yes, we need to increase our housing stock. That means we don't allow developers to pay into a fund. We need them to build the housing that we need. That means maybe not so many fancy things, expensive things, but actually making it inviting for developers to build affordable units. That means smaller units, more modest units. And that also means that we get people in the short term. We have a plan, which is my plan is to have three proposed locations on my website for a Red Cross-like shelter, so we can have people come in out of the cold, where we have toilets and showers and needs assessment on site. Because right now the environment is being used for those things, and so then we're not being good tax stewards for $400 for that, and the environmental cleanup side as well.
Okay, Deborah, your thoughts about what you'd like to change, if anything, about the city's homeless response? Do we need more money to do that, and if so, where do we get it?
Yeah, I need to make a correction for Ann.
Okay.
I chair the waterfront. And you're right, we did start in 2011. This is just a correction when we want to deal with facts. That is a labor of love for me. We spent 3.5 years to get a $700 million project and lit across the finish line, and 3 lawsuits, and had to hire a hearing examiner. We did that. I did that in my committee. So that I would just want to correct that.
Thank you.
So homelessness, let's get back to that. We have 11,000 homelessness people in King County. You know, we've talked about it. We are moving towards a regional response, the King County Homeless Authority. And so I think it's important to know, and I tried to say this a couple times when we were in these forums, that it's important to look at the facts. Right now, we have a 21% decrease in homelessness. We have now moved 20% more people into housing. And what I'm really proud of is with this mayor and what we're doing with HSD and Jason Johnson on the equity piece, we have improved the lives of Native Americans up to 12% in housing. We have improved the lives of the Latino community 9%. We have improved the lives of African Americans 8%. And we have made major strategic investments that are working, 8 of them, here just off the top.
Okay.
Enhanced shelters, tiny house villages, diversion, outreach, prevention, transitional housing, and rapid rehousing. But let me just end on this note.
Okay.
We are moving away from just a cot or a mattress on a floor. We learned from Bob Poppy and the experts that that doesn't work. It's inhumane. We have to have enhanced wraparound services to shelter the unsheltered, and we have to go and dig deeper for mental health and addiction. And that's what we have been laser focused on. And we are now going to be spending with the King County New Regional Homeless Authority. The city is kicking in, I believe, 73 million, 78 million, and the county's putting in 55 million. And what people don't know, and what we're going to roll out, and we're working on an interlocal agreement, is those are laser focused on services, the 8 issues that I just rattled off.
Okay.
And can I just end on this one
Please.
sentence?
Yeah.
Which I come from this from a real humane and empathy point of view. Homelessness is a singular event that has multiple causes. And as a government, we want to respond with do no harm. We want to respond with empathy, but we also want to respond with public safety and public health.
And Ann, you put your hand up. How did you want to say
because I'm sure that Deborah knows that it's not true that there's a 21% decrease in homelessness. The point in time count changes methodology. So statistically, it's not the same comparison when you look at the number from last year to this year. We had a decrease in number of experts who were out counting, and the way the multipliers that they used, I don't want to go into all the statistics of it, but it's drastically different. And so to say that is actually not being very honest with the public, because we have a difference of numbers, but the methodology to get there is different. So I think that, again, we want to make sure we're lifting up those who are marginalized. The point is to get people who cannot self-advocate, the vulnerable people, into shelter, and we want to make sure we're being honest with the public as we do it, because they're the ones helping us do it.
Just to respond to what Deborah was saying, though, this whole idea that putting a cot on the floor doesn't quite do it. I know what you're talking about with these different ideas to open some old warehouses, let's say, and have some shelters in that way. Do you think that would work? I mean, the amount of services you might need to support something like that, to provide that wraparound service that a lot of the experts say is needed in those situations. How do you do that? And again, how do you pay for it? It sounds like this is something that might cost a lot extra.
Right. So again, I think we're blurring a lot of things in and calling it homelessness. We have an affordability issue for some.
Okay.
Maybe someone's working 2 or 3 jobs and just simply cannot afford a place to live. We have other people who are experiencing mental illness, and they need different types of treatment. And then we have those who are probably addicted and need a different type of treatment. So by doing this act, we'll get to be able to tailor the approach better, and then be able to actually do the actual laser-focused spending on those issues when we know it's mental illness or addiction, and affordability when we start to tease things out.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm going to switch gears, if I could, here and talk about community health engagement locations, otherwise known as safe injection sites, something the council has been studying as a way to deal with our opioid epidemic. I think you have some different positions on this, and Ann, I'm going to ask you first. Do you support CHELS? Would you like to see one or more located in D5?
No, I do not support those. I believe every dollar that we have available should be going to underfunded detox and treatment. Right now we have up to a 2-week wait time for someone when they're ready to go into detox, and then we don't have a place readily available when they come out to go into treatment. And so I liken it to what would I want from my mother, and I ask that to everybody. What would you want for your family member if they were battling this addiction? You would not want to just necessarily put dollars into continuing the addiction. The goal is sobriety. The goal is recovery. Let's put all dollars, all energy, all conversation to that end goal, because then we can get people into treatment.
Deborah, your thoughts here. Safe injection sites, do you support them? Should we see a CHEL located in District 5?
Let's put it in perspective with the narrative. This just didn't come out of the blue. I sit on the Board of Health with Councilmember Bagshaw and Councilmember Mosqueda. We looked at the Vancouver project, obviously.
Insight, yeah.
Yeah, you saw that. And what's happening globally. So do I support injection sites in D5 specifically? No. But I think it's important to note that that's not on the table anymore. And also, when we had been briefed at least 6 times by Board of Health, our doctors at the UW, our director of Board of Health for the King County, is that report was well over 200 pages, and maybe less than 5% was dedicated to CHELS, but everybody jumped on them.
Yeah.
You had these surrounding little towns that were passing ordinances saying, you'll never have a CHEL here, with this crazy idea that only people with opioid and addiction issues are all in Seattle. That is just not the case. We have people, and as you saw in Oklahoma and nationally, and now we have with Mr. Ferguson, our AG, who are suing opioid companies for that very reason. This is a real public health risk. People are dying. People are dying behind, like I say, the Safeway or the 7-Eleven, in the streets. What we as human beings, as government, as just who our moral values are, we cannot look away. We have to give that gaze to those people that need that help. We saw this with the crack epidemic, and people wanted to attack it with criminality. We got to put people in jail. 3 strikes, you're out. Did that work? Absolutely not. It devastated communities and families instead of a medical approach. Can
I be clear, though, and Ann, I'll bring you in a minute. I think I hear what you're saying. This is not something you would like to see cited in District 5, and that's what the different health experts have been talking about here. It's looking like a mobile type of unit. Is that what the council's working on right now? Is that something you... No. What are we talking about then? We're not talking about anything mobile right now, or even brick and mortar. And so let's get back. People keep saying, and I've heard this, I'm so tired of hearing this, when they say a lie's around the earth twice before the truth gets their shoes on. Nobody ever said, certainly not me, we're putting a heroin injection site in D5. No one's ever said that. What we said is... I think she has said... No, stop interrupting me. I asked you not to do that. Hang on, please. I asked you not to do that. It's okay. All right. So what we did say is, where is a welcoming neighborhood
Where's a welcoming community? And we don't have one.
Okay.
And that's where we're at.
Those are difficult to find. And Ann,
Exactly.
what point did you want to make about this,
Well,
please?
Debora has said the last time she was quoted was that she wanted one in Lake City. When Councilman Bagshaw, they were talking about down in Belltown and Lake City.
Okay.
And if you look at the Insight numbers when they started in 04, they had 400 deaths per year. It's over 1,200 deaths per year. So it's not getting people into treatment. If we talk about detox and treatment, we are talking about the humanity of it. I'm also endorsed by Tom Hansen, who wrote American Junkie, who himself lived through decades of heroin addiction. He does not believe in these because it does not uphold the most virtuous parts of our humanity.
Okay.
We want people to get into treatment and not to be creating a public safety issue for others around.
Okay, thanks very much. I want to switch gears to another hot issue in the district, building a new police precinct. A lot of people have been talking about this. There were definitely concerns about this project, the cost of it in 2016. Then Mayor Ed Murray put it on hold. Right now, the permit process is underway for some improvements to the precinct. This would allow officers to stay at the site, which is overcrowded, for another 7 years as a new facility is planned for and built. Debora, as you well know, this has been a politically, racially charged issue too. What sort of public safety concerns exist in District 5? And is this current plan for improvements a good answer? And maybe touch on the long-term solution too.
No,
if you can.
that's actually a great question. I'm glad you brought that up because this issue of the police station has been going on since 1998. And we have had, I think, 13 votes in the last 4 years. Right up until that last 13th vote, we thought we were getting a police station. And let's back up a little bit. We were focused on the consent decree that was issued against Seattle Police Department back in 2012. We wanted this brick and mortar building to be the embodiment of constitutional policing. As you know, we were found guilty of excessive force, biased policing, and lack of accountability. So my point was this. We push hard for that. Now, whether it's one station up on 130th where we already bought the property, or whether it's two. Now, so we have voted, I have voted for those 40 additional police officers. We work closely with Captain Sano and Chief Best and the mayor's office and Pete Holmes. And so what we're hearing from community, which drives me crazy, is District 5 is the only district that does not have a police station. And this police station would serve Districts 4, 5, and 6, which would also have response times would increase. And of course, we had that difficult issue up in the north end of east-west egress back and forth. And we saw that with the shooting at Sandpoint, the shooting on 85th in Lake City Way. And so that would alleviate, and I'm hoping it doesn't turn into another political yelling match again.
Okay, and your thoughts about this? This is a very charged issue, as you know, trying to build a new precinct. I want to talk about your public safety concerns in the district, your thoughts about the improvements that are in the permit process right now, maybe some long-term ideas too.
Well, it's important to note that at our City Club debate, September 21st, that Debora said that crime was down 10% citywide, but the Part 2 system failure report just came out yesterday, and in fact, it shows that some businesses are experiencing crime, and they're only reporting 5% of the crime that they experience. And so there's over 37,000 misdemeanors, non-traffic misdemeanors that have not been filed between 2010 and 2017 that this report lists. So the experience of what people are having is grave, but what our leaders are telling us is that what we're experiencing is not true. And I say we need to be rebuilding trust with the public. That means we need to be hearing what their real life experiences are. We need to be making sure that we're quoting statistics correctly and that we are listening to people and not trying to shame them for when they're concerned about their own safety or their family's safety, because these numbers are concerning. And I think we need to have 2 precincts up in the north end. We need to have a welcoming city that includes police officers being welcome to do their job. What we're seeing in that report is that the police they do their job, but they see it comes to no avail, and there's no reason to do that.
Before we go to closing arguments, if you will, I have 2 attorneys here. I thought I'd bring that up. But an issue maybe we haven't talked about yet that you'd like to bring up, happening D5, maybe it's not getting a lot of media attention. You've heard about it on the campaign trail. And any thoughts there briefly about that?
On issues that have been happening?
Yeah, that we haven't talked about here, maybe.
Well, a lot of people are concerned about what's happening at Northgate in particular, the loss of close shopping for them, and particularly when we talk about congestion tolling, there's concern that people will not be able to afford to go downtown, so they're looking to go up to Linwood, right? It's changing a lot of people's lives. There is some benefit there, but it's also concerning on that end. I also think it's important to understand that the Seattle Center will be a great asset to have, but I believe that the negotiating that was done there is critically important for people to understand. I have an op-ed on my website about it, that we've given hundreds of millions of dollars in tax subsidies to those investors. And a lot of the public doesn't know that at their doors. And over half of that would go to Washington State public schools. And so I feel like that's an important piece that people are showing me they're concerned about school funding. It's not particularly relevant for this position, but that's a piece of it, right?
Yeah.
And it's relevant to talk about because some people don't care about pro sports, but you need to care about the financial transactions and what's in the best interest of the public.
Okay.
And then I would just say sidewalks, right? We're back to that as well.
Okay. I know we're trying to cover a lot of ground here, and thank you for bringing that up. Deborah, maybe an issue we haven't talked about that you wanted to bring up, maybe it's not getting a lot of coverage. Any thoughts there?
Well, I'm excited about the NHL coming. And I negotiated those contracts. And let me just say this. We are the only city in the country that is not paying for the Seattle Arena to get done. And that has never happened. Why? Because I read the ACOM reports and I read the other reports. And the way we're paying for it is through an admission tax, which is a common tool that municipalities use. So let me just get back to congestion pricing. We were focusing on emissions, equity, and transportation and the street connector. And also in regards to Northgate, that is private property. The Simon folks own that. We work with them with the NHL and OVG. We secure that training center there where they wanted to move it down to Tukwila. I mean, if you're not in the front row of that, I don't know how much more involved I could have been to say, oh no, this is an $85 million facility. It's a training facility. It will be the NHL West, 2 hotels, up to 1,500 units of market rate housing, child-oriented childcare, a union grocery store. The density there is going to be transformational for D5. I cannot tell you how excited we are. In fact, tonight at 6 o'clock, the NHL and OVG will be talking to community at Northgate to talk about the changes. A lot of people don't know this. I know this. I wouldn't expect Ann to know this. But a lot of those businesses that were there, their leases were up. In fact, Simon was paying some of the biggest tenants to stay. And because we have the pedestrian bike bridge coming through that we have worked on, that we've expanded, that I'm so excited to connect Northgate Mall to North Seattle College, where we have 18,000 students, is going to be phenomenal.
I need to ask you to wrap up. Why should people be voting for you for this position? Please keep it as short as you can.
I will. They should, because I did everything I said I would do, and because I'm good at my job and I love my job and I plan on working harder to deliver and finish all the projects that we started. But more importantly, every career choice I have made has been at the core being a public servant. Public defender, legal services, King County Superior Court judge. I was a drug court judge before anyone even thought it was viable. And they would say, oh, you're just enabling people. Now it's standard practice. When I represented people in the public defender, it's because they didn't have legal counsel. When I was at Evergreen Legal Services, it was farm workers and tribes. And when I worked for 2 governors, I was blessed and honored to be able to develop policy statewide.
Okay, thank you very much for that. You get the last word, Ann.
Sure, I'd say, well, where were you when the crime rate in Licton Springs went up 103% from 2016 to 2017? It's great to have a lot of clout to say that you've done in the past, but what I'm saying is the people today really want to feel connected to the representation, and that's not happening in District 5 for the majority of the voters. I've heard it from them. I've heard from a couple who had to sell their townhome, their first townhome, at a loss because of campers in their backyard and people defecating in the front porch. This is not a connection to voters. This is not how we get the job done well, and I feel like I can do a better job. I've shown it by being out. That is my priority. The quality of life of the residents up in District 5, because they need to know that there is someone who has their back. And, you know, I do have young kids, and I understand what's happening for parents, and it's important that they know that. So I really ask for people's vote in November, because it's time for change, and it's not now. Otherwise, we have the status quo for another 4 years.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And we will be right back.
I think what's important is affordable housing.
Continuing to move forward on climate and clean energy.
Redeveloping the 99 corridor is huge.
My main concern is the place stays clean.
We'd like to know what you think. Send us an email at contact@seattlechannel.org or find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Before we close today, it's time for our weekly CIO poll. What's your chief concern in District 5? Homelessness, affordability, transportation, or something else? We want to know what you think. Cast your vote and weigh in with your comments at our website, seattlechannel.org/cityinsideout. While you're there, you can watch our programs online anytime. Coming up next week, our election coverage continues with Council District 6. Former City Council member Heidi Wills faces City Hall staffer Dan Strauss in the race to represent Ballard and Northwest Seattle for the next 4 years. Watch them debate right here next time on City Inside Out. I hope you join us.